Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Gisela K, and this is just a really quick summary for those of you who missed the live stream and do not want to watch a live stream replay with all the interruptions, with all the chatters there and everything. There are more slides that I have to this presentation, so if you do want to see the full thing, I would recommend checking out the live stream replay. But let's just quickly go over what this episode was about, why I made this presentation, and what I was trying to get across. And the real message for me was that I think we need a reminder at this point, because the case is so viral, high profile, and so scary. It's unprecedented. This is one of those that we'll never forget. So the thing is, it's gotten to a place now where social media needs to get a bit of a grip, because it's starting to go in the direction of not only pointing fingers at everyone saying they're the killer, this one's the killer, that one's the killer, but also starting to state pure speculation and rumors as fact, like we saw with the Elantra that was found in Oregon. It went from, well, that's interesting, to it's definitely the landlord's, just because the King LLC, the owner of the 1122 King Road and other properties in the area, is registered to someone in Colorado, and then the VIN number of the Elantra was also registered to someone in Colorado, and that became factual on the internet, which it was not factual, that this car belongs to the owner of 1122 King Road. And then people took it as far as to say, yep, they showed the guy's picture, the landlord, they showed his photos, everything about him, and like, yep, this guy's the killer. I mean, that is just ridiculous. So we just need to take a little bit of quite a big deep breath, okay, and just know that it's completely normal to feel scared, to feel, anxious, which is pretty much the same thing, and confused and very curious at this point of, wow, who really did this? What is this case? This is crazy. Like, someone went into a home or waited in the home, and maybe it's someone's, maybe it's more than one killer, but they went into this home and murdered 4 people, 2 20-year-olds and 2 21-year-olds. And then the most bizarre, extra things to this case are, there was a dog found in a room that's where the crime wasn't committed. So was it a vacant room? Was it a bathroom? We don't know. But not only that, there were also 2 other roommates in the home who didn't hear anything and are completely unharmed. Of course, not mentally. Mentally, they are very harmed by all of this, I'm sure. So anyway, the point of today's episode is just to go through some of these things quickly to show what we don't know. And by now, you're looking at this picture for quite some time, so you can see where everyone's room is. And I'm sure if you followed the case, you already know this. But let's go over what we don't know, just to serve as a reminder that really the public, we know maybe 5% of what's actually going on in a case. That shouldn't discourage anyone. You can be helpful if you have a credible tip. Just be very careful, what at this point you're consuming. What type of content are you consuming? What kind of conclusions are you drawing? And if you ever feel like you just feel like, man, I just want to focus again and what's going on in this case, because everybody starts freaking out and saying a whole bunch of more and more radical things, just remember the victims. Remember that this is not a movie. These are real people that died, that were murdered, that lost their lives in the most terrible way. And I did go over each victim today as well, and the people that they were, their personality traits, and the way that their family and friends describe them, and the huge loss that they are now having to deal with. So please do check that out if you did miss it. But the thing is, these are real people that were brutally murdered while they were in their beds. And it's absolutely unforgettable. I'm pretty sure if I'm still here in, a few decades from now, and if you are here with me, then we will not forget this case. It's just one of those for the history books, because it's so absolutely devastating. 4 people murdered in their beds. So this photo, wow, how sad to think that Kaylee said one lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day, and that was less than 24 hours before 4 out of the 6 in the photo were brutally murdered. So what we don't know is, when did Kaylee graduate? I think she was supposed to graduate because there was that ceremony she was supposed to be at in December, but she started this internship with a tech company in June, and then she apparently had moved out of the home. She'd gone back home for a bit, so I don't know if she was visiting or moved out. There is a snippet that one of the Grizzlies sent me that showed that Kaylee's dad said that her bed didn't have any blood on it, and that's how they know that she wasn't in her room when the crime happened, and her body was found in Maddie's room. So very interesting. I don't know what the state of her room was, if she was semi-moved out or completely moved out or what was happening. All I know is that in January she wanted to go backpacking, and then in February she was supposed to start this new job. So when did she move out from 112 King Road? Was her room empty? Why did no one occupy the best room in the house? None of the neighbors that, the neighbors, Inan and Jeremy and everyone that has had interviews, they don't remember seeing Murphy at the house. That's the dog. The landlord also didn't allow dogs at the house. So why was Murphy staying over that weekend? And where was Jack that weekend? And which room was Murphy found in on Sunday, November 13th, 2022, afternoon by the police? How long had Kaylee and Jack been broken up? Was she seeing someone new? Are there breakups that we don't know about? Everyone focuses on Jack because they're like motive, because of the breakup and all that. But what if there was a new relationship in between and there was another breakup? We don't know. Did Maddie and Kaylee go to the corner club frequently? What did Maddie tell Adam? I told Adam everything. Why did white hoodie guy Jack S. feel protective of them that night? Did he usually escort them to the food truck? Is that just what they did? We don't know. They could have gone there every single weekend while they were both there and studying and everything. And maybe Jack always just walked them to the food truck. We don't know. We don't have that baseline. So why did they call Jack, that's Jack D, Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, 10 times, 6 times from Kaylee's phone between 2:26 and 2:44 a.m., 3 calls from Maddie's phone, and then there's another call from Kaylee's phone at 2:52 a.m., and a text message. Why did they do that? We don't know. Was it a drunk call? Were they panicked? Did they hear something? Were they scared? Did they think that maybe he was pranking them? What was it? We don't know the answer to that. We also do not know if any of the victims attended the game that day. There was quite a big football game. The Idaho Vandals actually lost to the UC Davis Aggies. And so did they all go to the game? Kaylee said 121 weeks ago, can we go back to game day? And that was a picture with her and Jack. And so this group, they loved sport, as we saw in the live stream, going over every single victim and what they loved and everything. Xana and Ethan loved sport. I mean, Xana played soccer before. Ethan did all sorts of sports, loved football as well. So did they all go to the game that day? That also adds a whole bunch of new possibilities of who did they run into there? What happened? Who locked eyes with them? We just don't know. Did they leave any voicemails for Jack? What did they say? We know that Kaylee sent Jack a text to say, come on, we have a dog together. Get back to me. Please come over. Did Jack try to call them back in the morning? I still have that question because we know that they tried to call him. But the next morning when he said, he was sleeping and he missed the calls, that's what Kaylee's parents said. Well, the next morning, are there missed calls on any of their phones? That he tried to call them back? Did he drive through there? Was he living across the road at the time as the house we've looked at? And did he walk over? What happened? What company was Kaylee going to work for? Did she have a network of friends there in Texas already? Had she traveled there before? Was Kaylee going to stay in Texas by herself? Was she going to stay with who? Did she know anyone there? And where exactly did she buy her car? And the only reason I asked that is because every single place where Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana went in the weeks, months, even days or hours before this crime matter. We can't just focus on what we do know and then say, well, that equals killer. As much as, we want answers, we can't do that because if that was true, then the killer would very likely be arrested already, right? So they don't know. They say they haven't identified a suspect. And the suspect is still at large. And that, I think, is the scariest thought in this entire case. Another thing, well, many things we don't know is, was Xana at home when Ethan attended Betty's ball with his siblings? Ethan went with his sister, and then his sister's roommate went with Hunter. So was Xana just waiting at home, and then they went to a party from 8 to 9? Or did they go to this party from 8 to 9, and then afterwards the Betty's ball happened? I'm not too sure. They were said to go to the Sigma Chi party from 8 to 9, and then return home at 1:46 a.m. As we can see, it's like a 5-minute walk, from Sigma Chi to the house. So that gap there from 9 p.m. to 1:46 a.m., that's a large time gap. We don't know what happened in that time. That is still a huge mystery and could hold many clues. Did the unharmed roommates hear anyone arrive back home? Did anyone else come home with any of the roommates or victims? Surely the neighbor's camera could tell a lot if Kaylee's sister was able to see that the girls came home, took Murphy out for party, and then went in and locked the door. If all that can be seen on camera, what else is seen on that camera? Xana's dad fixed a door lock the weekend before, which was between November 4th and 6th. Why? Were there safety or privacy concerns? Were there frequent parties at the house filled with crowds that the housemates barely knew, like we saw in the September body cam footage? And maybe the couple just wanted space and privacy, which is totally normal. Was it the front door lock that was changed or fixed? We just don't know. If Murphy was found in a room where the crimes did not occur, was this the usual routine? Did the unharmed roommates and friends look for him the next day? Could someone have entered the home between 1:45 a.m. and 1:56 a.m.? And by that I mean if someone was waiting in the dark there in the woods behind the house, for instance, and they saw Xana and Ethan go to their room, like going to the house and going to their room, and then there's a little time gap there before Maddie and Kaylee got home. Maybe the killer entered the home at that time. We don't know that. They could have even entered the home and already entered Xana and Ethan's room and murdered them, and then waited for Maddie and Kaylee to get home and then gone upstairs. We just don't know, but the police are saying that they believe the murders occurred between 3 and 4 in the morning. How exactly they know that, we don't know. There's lots of things we could speculate, but we just don't know. Now, some of the things we do know, Halloween 2022. So on Friday, October 29th was Ethan's birthday, which is 15 days before the murders. So that was a big party weekend, because not only was it Ethan's birthday and he was at the Sigma Chi fraternity, so that could have been a huge party, but then Halloween also happened on a Monday, so most Halloween parties took place over the weekend. So if you look at Kaylee's post from October 30th, she posted this Halloween skit to TikTok 14 days before the murders. And so, yeah, a lot was going on that weekend, and we don't know what happened there. You know, did anyone hook up with anyone? Was there any beef, any fights? We don't know. I know I'm saying we don't know a lot, but it is important to realize how little we actually know, and to not get overexcited about little things that we might know. And that's fine if you want to get excited about it, but don't state it as fact. On November 1st, this is interesting, tickets went on sale for a play called Cry Havoc. This show actually took place on November 12th, 2022 at 8 p.m. It was planned that way. Now, I'm not throwing a red flag at this dude. I'm going to discuss this a little bit more for members and patrons, because there's some things that I find interesting about just everything about the play, the dude, everything. So I'm not officially throwing any red flags at this dude. I just looked at the date, Saturday, November 12th. This is happening, at the University of Idaho. Cry Havoc. Have a look for yourself what that play is about and everything, if you want to just read up some more on it. Some people have sent this to me, and I do find it quite interesting as well. And also someone had reminded me that Charles Manson was born on November 12th, 1934, November 12th he was born, and he died on November 19th. So you just don't know if a killer, I'm not saying anyone on screen right now, of course not. I'm just saying a killer. You don't know what they could be inspired by, copycatting or anything like that. Some of the last social media posts that we know, there's also a lot we don't know, but from Instagram, Maddie posted on Instagram on November 12th, 2022. She posted pictures with Dylan and Bethany, and she said formalities. Her TikTok is very interesting. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on the live stream, because I played it a few times. It was interesting. It could just be college humor or just a prank or something. The person in the blue wig is Dylan, and Xana is next to her, and it's just a very strange post. And then Kaylee on Instagram posted what we saw earlier, November 12th, 2022. On October 30th, she posted on TikTok, and Xana on Instagram on October 29th, 2022. These are some of the last posts they ever made. Of course, we do not know what they may have last uploaded or posted to Snapchat or Be Real or apps like that. So for instance, on the left here from that University of Idaho Barstool's page on Instagram, here I just found this interesting because it's showing on Snapchat the locations of everyone. You can see just about where everybody's at, and it says Maddie, it says Jake, and 30 more. And so, a killer wouldn't even have to wonder when everyone gets home. They could just literally look on Snapchat, for instance, and see when everybody was in the house and then make their way over there. Of course, we also saw from the food truck video that Kaylee was on her phone all the time. Her parents, her family said that she was always on her phone all the time. She sounds like me. I'm always on my phone. But who was she talking to? Who was she texting? What was going on? What was she doing on social media? We just don't know that either. And it could be clues which are not vital for us. It's vital for the police who are doing the investigation. Now, I went over the timeline of what we do know. And this one, I'm just going to skip forward because I'm sure if you watch my episodes, you know. Otherwise, pause and have a look at what I have written here. You can just read through it. But what I actually pointed out there, which you can see highlighted, Maddie and Kaylee went to the corner club and they were picked up at around 10:15 p.m. Arriving at the corner club at 10:20 p.m., started walking to the food truck around 1:30 a.m. with Jack S., and then they got home at 1:56 a.m. Now, I would love to know who picked them up. Was it a friend? Because they say picked up, so it doesn't mean like, okay, Xana and Ethan were already there and they just took them, or they drove themselves. They were picked up. So was that the same designated driver from the sorority? Was it a different driver that maybe they take turns? Maybe there's multiple drivers. I have no idea. But they were picked up. Also, remember that the night before, Kaylee and Maddie had attended Maddie's sorority house party. They were having a party. So then again, were they picked up then again? Was it the same driver, a different driver? We don't know, but just remember that law enforcement said that they do not believe that the private driver is involved in this crime. And then if I just skim over some of this, because most of this you will know if you followed the case, the police want any footage from between 3 and 6 a.m., but they also want information about a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra from November 12th to 14th, the day before and the day after the murders. Another question that I had was, why did the 6th roommate move out and why did no one else move in? Meaning the rent is the rent. So if someone moves out and there's just an unoccupied room for whatever reason, maybe she just didn't like it there. Maybe she, dropped out. Maybe she started a new job. We don't know. They did also say, law enforcement said, they do not believe that that person is involved in the crime. So don't even go there. But the point is, why did they move out, and then who covered that rent? Because they would all be splitting the rent of that house. The less people that live there, of course, the more rent is paid. Now, according to public opinion, who is the most likely suspect or suspects? And as I said in my live stream, I do understand why many people think this, right? But I just want to remind us all that law enforcement has cleared these people. Now, I've got to say the word cleared very carefully. Cleared in inverted commas, actually, because no one's cleared until the investigation's over. But they do not believe that these people are involved in the murders. So the first suspects are the roommates. Why? Because there was no sign of forced entry, because there's no blood trail. So therefore people deduce, well, obviously then it's someone in the house already. So that would be, sure, if it's someone in the house already, then it would point to the roommates, and I understand that, but they did say that they do not believe that they are involved in the crime. Then, of course, ex-boyfriend. As I say, we understand the motive would be really strong. He's just gone through an amicable split, as Kaylee's parents said, but he may be really upset about it. We don't know. And then Kaylee was also moving to Texas and partying and loving her life, and maybe he felt really abandoned, rejected, and maybe he felt a lot of rage. That could be a motive. However, law enforcement says they do not believe he's involved in the crime. And just to remember, well, we don't know if she had started any new relationships, if she was seeing anyone else, or what was really happening there. And then we've got Jack S. as well. He has also been said to be believed to not be involved in the crime, and he's white hoodie guy, in case you forgot. And so yes, that would just be important to remember, that maybe we should start looking at other options instead of going round and round and round until we all feel sick. As much as a lot of these seem to be what one might call Occam's razor, very straightforward answer of who do you think, who done it? Well, that would be obvious, but maybe this case is so complex and maybe less obvious. We are yet to see. Maybe at the end of the day it will be something really obvious. But I think it's helpful and productive at this point to think outside of that box that we have all found ourselves in, and to just think of other possibilities. So who has been cleared? The 2 surviving roommates, the male in the grub truck surveillance video. Again, I'm going to point out that's very vague language because there were lots of males in the grub truck surveillance video. The private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on November 13th, the male that Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours of November 13th, which would be Jack D, the ex-boyfriend, any individual at the residence when 911 was called, and the individual on the lease who moved out of the residence before the school year started and was not present at the time of the incident. Also, with any individual at the residence when 911 was called, we don't know who was there. There's rumor that Hunter was there, that Sigma Chi guys came over, but we don't actually know who the roommates called, who was there at the time, when that call was made, and when law enforcement arrived. So that's who's been cleared. And then we've got this second layer of the usual suspects, as John Kelly would say, which number one would be Adam, which is the barman and the alleged roommate of Jack D and friend of Jack. He is cooperating with law enforcement. That's their latest update. They are not saying cleared or anything like that, or not believed to be involved in the crime, because it's still early days. They've only just, that's only just gone public, and now they're going to have to vet everything, go through everything, and maybe eventually they'll say. But they also can't make an entire list, hundreds of pages of who they do not believe is involved in the crime. So, of course, we've got Jeremy, the neighbor. I think he's deleted a lot of his social media, if not all, but they haven't ever added him to the list. When he went to the police station to give up his DNA, they didn't even know who he really was. So that's just internet speculation, and I think the police can only deal with so much of that, right? Then we've got Inan Harsh. He's a fire stick juggler and a neighbor, and there's a lot of red flags flying with him. And so, yeah, I'm learning some new information behind the scenes as well, which I find quite interesting, and I'm just monitoring it. But this is also someone that's not on the cleared list. Neither is Joe V, who was at the food truck and said that the girls left without paying for their food, which we can see on the video they did pay for their food. And he said he was 100% sober, and then said he drank a drink. I can't remember the name of the drink there. Special cocktail at the corner club. So that's not 100% sober, but I get what he was meaning. But the point is, yes, I understand lots of red flags are flying with all these people on the screen here. We've got Jack K, of course. He also hasn't been added to the list. David Loach. I mean, every frat boy hasn't been added to the list. Every friend, every family member. I mean, that would just be ridiculous. The police doesn't owe the public that. They are busy with their investigation. And of course, also the Elantra that was found in Eugene, Oregon, is now deemed unrelated, or the owner, who is said to be female, is believed to not be involved in the crime. The longer that time goes on, the more likely it is that the killer is someone not in the immediate circle of the victims. All DNA collected would already be tested and in the system, likely. The toxicology report should be available between December 25th and January 8th, but it may be delayed due to the holiday season. I know the coroner said that she doesn't think tox reports are important, but of course they are. DNA testing may be tricky based on it being a college or party house, so clearing everyone will take a while. So what if this is a sadistic killer, possibly a sadistic sexual predator, a fantasy killer, and someone who we do not have a name or face for yet? Like, actually face that thought, because it's actually a lot easier to try to put a face to this killer so that we could try to understand who the hell did this, who's capable of this. But what if there is no face yet? What if we don't know what this person looks like, who they are yet? Maybe it's a complete stranger. Because, as I say here, it's much easier to blame the boyfriend, the roommates, the friends, the co-workers, the people we can see in the food truck video, the neighbors, etc., than to think that this is someone who silently entered a home at night and brutally killed 4 young adults. Of course, when I say co-workers, what about patrons? What about people that were there at the Mad Greek restaurant and everywhere else? Maybe they were regular customers turned stalkers. We just don't know. We do not know who this killer is. The suspect is at large. That is the scary truth. So if we also just think about the weapon, they say fixed blade knife. The only reason that we all latched on to, of course, the K-bar knife is because a local store came forward and said that police had asked them specifically about a K-bar knife. So that was interesting, but that is also just based on what someone at a store said. So we don't know if it is an axe, a machete. Look at some of these weapons. It's really scary. Is it a sword? We don't know exactly what weapon it is either, and the weapon has not been located. Now, what would a stranger's possible motives be? Because we always got to remember motive. If you ever feel like you're lost and confused in the swamps of the internet speculation, just remember motive. What would the motive be? Motive, maybe sexual, maybe an obsession with one or more of the victims, maybe sexual and rejection, like abandonment, rage, rejection leading to revenge. For example, an incel, a stalker, a delusional lover, or an ex-lover or something. Maybe it's a fantasy-driven motive, maybe a sexual fantasy to kill one or two or more of the victims this way. Some people go really far psychologically. I mean, we know of serial killers turned necrophiliacs, which means they go back to the bodies, as you know, and do all sorts of stuff to that. That's really disgusting. So to think that someone could have a sexual fantasy to do this is pretty tame compared to that. And it has happened in history, of course. It could also be mental illness. Maybe hallucinatory or external voices told them to do this. And if those voices, for example, are saying every single day, go to that house, kill the people in it, go to the house, you know what I mean? Like if it's all the time, sometimes to ease the suffering, some people that struggle with this would just be like, fine, I'm just going to do what you say to make it stop, right? So that goes under the mental illness umbrella as well, which is something to consider. And then substance abuse and mental illness could also be a factor, of course. Maybe they have a loss of sense of reality. Maybe they're power hungry. Again, we just don't know exactly, but these are some options to consider. If it is someone completely like strange, who would do this? Yes, possibly a peeping Tom, possibly someone with a fetish, possibly someone with an obsession, possibly someone who wants revenge for whatever reason. We don't even know that, the dynamics of that. I know there's some stuff being speculated, but yeah, there's lots of possibilities. What could we look out for in someone who could do this? Well, they would probably, if it's one person, be physically strong to be able to kill 4 people. Maybe they also spared the other roommates because they were very tired. That's another possibility. Thank goodness for them. They may be prone to abuse or harm animals, which we've seen in the area. That would be nothing new in the area. Skinned dogs, coyotes, mangled coyotes, and all kinds of stuff. In 2013, there was an article that said, do we have a serial dog killer in Moscow, Idaho? They may have a knife collection. They may dwell on fantasies of murder or violence. They are very likely to have suffered severe trauma in childhood. They are likely a loner. They may have just lost their job or college tuition or failed at something. That would be very emasculating. And then if you think maybe they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to start drinking all my problems away, for example, and they go out and then they pursue a girl and then that girl rejects them or people laugh at them or something, that would be like they've got nothing left to lose. They couldn't feel any lower. Sometimes that could trigger some really, really bad stuff. They may have also recently been released from being incarcerated for violent crimes. We've seen that. Remember the Eliza Fletcher case? They may have also recently lost a significant relationship, and maybe one or more of the victims reminds them of that significant loss. And they may literally be a serial killer. So that is a summary of my episode today, and still that took half an hour. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see the full episode with all the chats from the whole community, I would recommend checking out the live stream that I have linked in my description box and pinned comments for you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.